Next question from Goofasaur.
Nice.
I like that too. It goes, "Hi Lorne, for years I've loved the designs of many of Oddworld's various fauna, such as the paramites, scrabs and slogs. I'm very curious to learn what inspired some of their designs, as well as why so many creatures seem to lack eyes. Is there lore or reason behind it, or is it more to make them look as gnarly as possible?"
On some levels here, I'd have to be speaking for the original designer of those, which was Stephen Olds. He was just so awesome. But he was always after something that hadn't been done before. And he was always after kind of trying to push the limits of the strange, just really designing unique signatures for, I'd say, semi-simple creatures that would just have a distinctive behavior and look to them. And I really wanted to give Steve the latitude, because he was there right at the beginning of the company. And I wanted to give him the latitude to really take the cuffs off, so to speak, of a lot of the more commercial things we were doing as a service, in the film business. And I thought he was just brilliant on a lot of levels. So I just kind of let him run. And we had some basic ideas. And then out of those, later designers and stuff was like, hey, we can layer on this behavior, or we can do that. Or how do they know you're coming when they don't have eyes? And then we'd be like, okay, they could feel your footsteps. Like, we were going through a lot of things because we just liked the designs, So in some ways, that's not the most clever approach for game design. I'd say like Miyamoto nailed that, where if it hurts to jump on it, it's going to have spikes on its head. If it's going to, it had a visual language for everything it did. And when we got into more, I'd say, less cartoony types of characters, we always used to say it needs to look like it came from a mother, that it had an actual DNA heritage. It was a little more challenging to be like, okay, where are they dangerous from what end? It was easier for a paramite or scrap. But for other creatures, it would be, for the slogs, it became more complicated because they didn't have eyes, So it's possible that we'd see some variations of those later that do have eyes. But I was facilitating Steve to just create more strange, more different. And so he had a lot of latitude to do that. And for whatever reason, he didn't put a lot of eyes in his characters that were wild.
So it sort of just evolved kind of naturally?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah,
because Steve would sort of set an inspirational point. And if you've looked at the original drawings, he was so good. And this is back, on pencil, right? For example, Steve Olds, the first Photoshop painting he made was the matte painting used for Rupture Farms in Abe's Odyssey. And it was really like, it wasn't easy getting him to go digital. I was like, Steve, he's like, the paint systems still suck. We're still in the 90s, right? And he saw what we went through with him Hughes when we were building the big film resolution paint system before Photoshop was available. And he was like, it just doesn't feel right. And he was extraordinary with a pencil. He was so exceptional in a lot of ways. He was granted that latitude. And then the rest of us would try and figure out ways that we could make what he was creating behave more cool.
Uh-huh.
So it's a bit of the inverse of what you should do.
But a fascinating little insight.
Well, thanks. But what you should do is you should know this is exactly what we want the character to do. Now, how should it look? Instead, we were like, this guy's really cool. Let's figure out how we should do things, which is can be problematic for game design for sure. So I caution against that.
It really underlines the idea that there's no really right or wrong way of doing these things. It's whatever works. Sometimes a limitation can be a strength and vice versa, I suppose.
Yeah. But if you're game builders, I think you have to, it's most prudent to work back from what you need the functional design to be.
Right.
It's easier to get yourself in trouble if you're just inspired by a design and you're trying to figure out how it might work. For game design, it's could be really dangerous.
Very interesting. Thank you for that answer.